Syria, diplomatic failures and deadlines unmet. Welcome to another video blog from the American Islamic Forum for Democracy. Today I'd like to visit with you again about the crisis in Syria. The UN continues at another pathetic diplomatic summit in Geneva, Geneva 2, while hope has all but vanished inside Syria. The international community thinks that it will save face by holding elaborate meetings in which they feign concern while doing essentially nothing to advance freedom for the over 20 million people clamoring for help in Syria. China and Russia weren't even shy to skip the humanitarian aid meeting in Geneva altogether. Assad has laughed at the deadlines he promised for chemical weapons handover, and as we all predicted, he'll likely never hand them over completely, since once he does, he knows he'll no longer be useful to the West. As long as he has them, he maintains relevance with Western powers, whose principles are obviously upside down. Meanwhile, the Syrian regime is using every opportunity it has to systematically starve millions of Syrians while strangling the opposition inside. Why would Assad meet those deadlines when the administration at every turn has demonstrated that it doesn't even have the wherewithal or the will to do anything to punish his regime for crimes against humanity? The Assad-led delegation held up talks for 10 days, demanding that terrorism defined by Assad mean any opposition to his rule at all be the central focus. It's not even possible for us to update you anymore on the numbers dying in Syria. We're guessing it's over 130,000, but the UN has stopped tracking those numbers due to the lack of information on the ground. Reporters are vanishing from Syria, and YouTube videos, which used to come out occasionally, now are but trickling, if at all, which is a telltale sign of the devastation and genocide impending. Unfortunately, the absence of that count has pushed the plight of the Syrian people almost off the radar, easing the conscience of the rest of the world, which is now inconvenienced by the horrifying reality of this ongoing genocide as we try to watch Olympics taking place in Russia. I can tell you from conversations with family and friends inside Syria that the number continues to grow at just an alarming rate. But even the Obama administration has been forced to admit that Syria has declined into an apocalyptic disaster, which the DNI, James Clapper, testified recently before Congress on February 11th. For years now, we at AIFD have been telling you that the absence of Western and particularly U.S. leadership in the region is creating a vacuum that radicals are happy to exploit. As the world is beginning to finally realize these radicals just don't threaten Syria, they pose a significant threat to the rest of the entire world. The diplomatic efforts have failed so miserably that the president himself, in a display of admission of personal failure, was forced to admit that it is bad for global national security because we know that there are extremists who've moved into this vacuum in certain portions of Syria in a way that could threaten us over the long term, unquote. Mr. President, you need to realize that that vacuum, which we were warning you about, is in part created by your failure to act on behalf of the Syrian people. From bogus red lines to the complete capitulation of the ideological struggle that is at the heart of the conflict in Syria, you've abdicated any moral authority and let the people of Syria be slaughtered. Assad and his cronies in Iran and Russia have played the administration for fools. Chemical weapons handover? Fail. Humanitarian aid? Fail. Jihadist threat in the region? Fail. Saying Assad must go? Fail. Russia and Iran, regional powers in the region? Fail. So ultimately, Syria is ground zero in the battle that has been waging for generations in the Middle East, and our absence of policies is proving to be exemplary of what's happening in Syria. All of the elements of this ideological war are coming to a head inside the borders of Syria, and they are pulling apart the fabric of the international community's ability to work for the betterment of mankind. Not acting in the face of growing disasters is sheer insanity. I encourage you to visit our website, www.aifdemocracy.org, to learn more about what I believe we should do in Syria and how we should support those voices truly calling out for freedom in the Middle East. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to engaging with you on Facebook and Twitter.